That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So Mike and Jacob are going to do an intro for us, and then we'll lead into it. Okay.
Give me one second. I'm going to start my audio recording right now. My local.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I should probably do the same thing. Check. Yep.
Okay, Michael. Whenever you're ready, I'll go after you.
I'll fire up the Zencaster let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, you just say go, and then Michael, you can start off.
Go!
Very. Jesus! Ah! All right, everything is fine. There is no problem. Do people watch this live? Is that a thing?
Frank does.
Oh, yeah, we got to post that, don't we? Yeah, we get a couple of people that might watch.
Okay.
Those are the diehard fans.
That's right.
Yeah,
or we pay them. One of those.
Sure.
Yeah, most of the diehard fans are also employees.
We have no employees.
Sorry, not employees.
Employment then.
All right, I'm throwing this one on Twitter though. This one is special. I'm throwing it up on Twitter. See, I should have had this all ready to go.
I need to have like a fancy map backdrop like Ian had yesterday.
That was pretty cool. It was all set up. They got those videos out really quickly as well, which is good.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Whenever you guys are ready, just go ahead.
All right, Michael. Whatever, man.
Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda.
And I'm Jake Bennett.
And in this episode, Thomas discusses the best way to make a sandwich without the government finding out. John discusses coding on no sleep and covered in baby vomit. And Matty Lance and Sean Maisie's Crash Eric's podcast for a change.
This is PHP Ugly, episode 52.
I like it. Nice.
That's awesome. All right. So for all the we're international today, fellas. We got people in Australia. I think we have every time zone in America covered. We got Jacob Bennett from Laravel News over. You're in Chicago, Jacob?
Yeah, just a little bit south of Chicago. Yep, you got it.
Yeah, so it's super late for you. We got Michael Dorinda. Close? Is it even close?
You got it.
It is close. That is great.
Over in Australia. What time is it for you right now?
It is 4:15 in the afternoon on Friday.
Got my buddy Matt from LaraChat Live up in Canada. What time is it for you right now, Matt?
12:45.
12:45.
Oh,
we're all over the country right now.
I was complaining.
This is awesome. So for the Americans on here, is it just me or is anybody else craving a bloomin' onion right now? Just
It wasn't. Thanks.
I don't know if there's a time I'm not craving a blooming onion.
This is
are
very
delicious.
true. Very true. So we got a special show today. We're recording PHP Ugly. It's episode 52. It's representing 1 year of us recording a podcast on a fairly weekly basis. I think there was 1 week when Thomas was moving that we had to skip. But besides that, we've pretty much hit every week for the last year. John's part-timer. And as a special thanks for listening, we actually brought some talent on the show today.
Who is the talent? Yeah, who is the talent?
We'll let you guys
me.
find that out yourselves.
So I got you guys here. I got to ask you, how's Laravel News going? That's a huge thing. You guys taking over one of the biggest podcasts, probably aside from the actual Laravel podcast and the Laravel community. Laravel News has got to be like second, right up there. How's that been going for you guys?
Michael, I'll let you start.
Okay. Yeah, it's been really good in terms of, really picking up where Eric and Jack left off. That was sort of umming and ahhing about continuing on in the new year. Eric's mentioned he doesn't really like speaking. And so, when he mentioned to me that I was sort of thinking about not continuing it, I said to Jake, look, we've got to, because I think it's really important. Not everyone is keeping up with all the podcasts and all the news. And I think Laravel News is a good way just to like bite-size that into half an hour and just sort of distill everything that's happening. So, it worked out really well. I've been enjoying it. It's been great to, further stick the claws into the Laravel community and speak to new people. And been really enjoying it.
Yeah, man, it was really kind of intimidating at first, I remember when we very first started our own podcast, it was intimidating. Like nobody was listening to it. And it was still like, as soon as we start recording, like the nerves would hit you like, And going on Laravel News, even with like Eric and Jack for the first time, it was really nerve wracking. And so you were like, oh, this is going to be like one of the biggest podcasts. And it's like, I just try not to think about that because, like if I think of like my list of qualifications, it's like there are certainly a lot of other people who are far more qualified than I am to do the show who could be doing it. But man, it's been a lot of fun.
Imposter syndrome hits very hard.
What's that?
The imposter syndrome hits quite hard.
Oh, it does. It really does. And the other thing that's been really cool though has been a lot of recent instances where I've been working on something and I have found like different places to use some of the new features that I've been learning pretty much because I have to do Laravel News every 2 weeks. So I have to know everything that's going on. So it's like, oh, this would be a great place to use that new tap collection method or that new where method on the collection class or I have to like try and find spots to use components in my Blade templates or things like that so that I can talk about them like somewhat semi-intelligently on the show. So it's been a good challenge to keep up with the stuff and it's been really beneficial even in my day job. So yeah, it's been really, really fun.
See, that's one of the things that set you guys apart from us. We don't try to be intelligent at all. We just talk.
We go and do it drunk and unprepared.
Yeah, I think it was funny when we started doing the podcast. I always recorded with the assumption nobody was going to listen to it. Mm-hmm. Nobody was ever going to listen to it, and it got to be very natural to do the podcast on a weekly basis because it was kind of like a moment of venting, kind of talking through everything you've come across through the week, and then at some point throughout the year. People like started listening, and it was so cool because you'd get notifications on Twitter, people reaching out to you, talking to you, correcting mistakes that you made in the show, and people reaching out to me on Slack on the LaraChat Slack channel, and it's like, holy crap!
We have to figure out how to get clients not to listen.
Yes,
because we often talk a lot of crap.
Well, if you talk about them, then they're no longer clients.
No, that's not true.
Yeah.
But plenty of times we talk about current clients. Try to keep names out of it, though.
Yeah, as long as you leave names out of it, you'll be fine.
Protect the innocent. Matt, what about you, my friend? See, Matt's always quiet. See, he drives me crazy. Even with LaraChat Live, he's like the pretty face. He just sits there.
That's because I do my best to be a good listener, and develop my talking points so that they are well timed and well tuned, even though most of them are not. And then I go on long, pointless drivel about this, that, and the other, like I am right now.
So you've got my role, but on your show.
Well, it's like Jacob's talking about how he didn't really necessarily feel like he's an expert per se, or that there's more qualified people to be doing podcasts and stuff. I have no idea why I've been involved in any of these shows. I feel like I just show up, smile a whole bunch, and then you're like, "Yeah, let's have Matt come on again." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure."
That's funny. Hey, I was gonna say, Eric, I know you had kind of sent out a list of notes that you kind of wanted to talk through. So one of the ones that I was looking at was your there was that library for PHP. Was it intelligent learning or machine learning or something like that? Yeah. And so I was just kind of clicking through everybody's Twitter profiles, and Matt, it looked like maybe I don't know if that's something that you're interested in or something that you do kind of on a daily basis. I was curious to hear. I was like, which one of the guys is going to take this on and explain this to me, because I just I don't know enough about it. There's a guy that I work with, one of my junior developers, who's really, really into this, and I'm trying to figure out where I could use it. I think it could be really valuable if I learned some of the stuff. But just even looking at the library that Eric, that you had sent out, and you can link up in the show notes, I'm sure. Just like, where are some areas that you use that, or what's your experience been with that so far?
So I stumbled onto that thing a long while ago, back, like, I think it was shortly after it first got released or whatever, and I started tinkering with parts of it. And I'm not by any stretch highly knowledgeable of machine learning practices or optimal techniques for it, but I've read a handful of stuff, and I listened to a lot of audiobooks that talk about machine learning and stuff. And it really, what everything about machine learning in my mind boils down to is what data do you have, and what are you actually trying to derive from your data? I mean, the techniques are pretty much all going to be, within a short spectrum of each other. I mean, there was one I was playing with, the naive Bayes structure is the one I've played with the most, because it's the one that when I look at it, I'm like, oh, I think I get what that's doing. I don't want to say I totally get it, because again, that's one of those things where I feel like I'm blatantly lying and acting like I'm super smart. That's the one I pulled that out of this library because I have a real hard time trusting academic libraries. I don't feel like they do version releases in the most trustworthy manner, because it's a different world. So I ended up pulling some of the naive Bayes stuff out of this library and putting it in one of mine, and then giving the most simplified structure to it, I guess. It's called Cerebrum.
That's the name of your library that you work on? Okay.
Yeah, I was just playing around with some of this stuff, because to me, there are certain parts of machine learning that are really valuable. Like, I think the natural language processing is by far the most valuable of all things involved with machine learning, but it's extremely convoluted and weird. And then there's what's official and what's like patterns people are doing. I couldn't tell you which one is right and which one is wrong, but it seems to be gaining in popularity. And then there's lots of there's an API. I shared this with Eric at one point. There was an API I found that would let you do.
Are you talking about the one that talked about the
attitude or whatever?
Right of
that's the
sentiment
Jenkins
analysis.
Yeah, the sentiment analysis. Thank you.
Ooh, that's cool.
The word is on the tip of my tongue, but sentiment analysis is a portion of NLP stuff. And what a lot of it boils down to, as far as I've ever seen, a lot of it's just like frequency analysis. You're looking at common terms, structures of those terms, and things like that. The guy who's doing the one bot, the Laravel chatbot for Slack.
Eve?
No, not Eve. Other one. Oh man,
Frank
Grundle.
Took my tongue. I'll think of it later. But he was saying he's just starting to dig into NLP stuff and be able to offer that in his library, so that the bots will be able to analyze your sentence structure better.
Instead of just having it so, like you say, videos, like in the Laracon Online Slack chat the other day, like Eric set up that Slack bot. Anytime anybody mentioned videos, it would like just pop out that link, and so everybody started saying videos and filled up the entire chat window with its response to like videos will be out in 1 week.
That's
so
Yeah.
so instead of that, it would take like what the person is saying and analyzing intelligently.
That's what I mean. Like, that's kind of the stuff that I've been playing with in my own little side projects. Like, I'm working on one where let's say I want a movie, and I just want it to be downloaded and added to my Plex library. I just want to be able to say, I just want to text the movie title to my robot, and it should just be able to understand everything about that. I mean, I could say download movie, but I'd rather just be able to just say the movie title. But there's a lot of implication in that. And anyway, so in terms of what I understand about machine learning, it's very slim. To get back to the original stuff, but like one example that I did think actually makes some sense is where you get into the prediction stuff. And so I had it in my little library. You can say, for example, you'd go to the repository and let's say you pluck the day, sleep hours, and active hours from a table. You'd be able to then pass that in as sample data. And then if you gave it an array of numbers, you could have it predict which day of the week that is based on the day, the sleep hours, and the active hours. Because it'll look at the commonality between those as a pattern, though, like as a sum of the parts, which is different from just being like, oh, well, clearly it's a Monday because they slept for 4 hours and they sleep for 4 hours on every Monday. It's looking at the sleep hours and the active hours and then saying, which day might this be? You have to look at I got some docs on it, very minimal, but they exist.
Your usage makes me sound like a terrible person.
Sorry?
Your usage makes me sound like a terrible person because my project this weekend was actually to use this to generate a machine learning for guessing passwords based off of people's emails. I was going to take all the leaked email stuff that's out there on the internet, and I was going to parse the email addresses, break them down by domain, and then break them down by words, and then compare it all together to see if they have a common language amongst the type of email account that it is.
That's interesting.
That's actually really
so
cool.
Like if it were Sunrise Realty at gmail.com, I would break it down to say, oh, this is a realty company and companies use password enforcement of this type. I mean, above my head, but not above the machine learning's head, it could figure out for me if I can get it to parse everything correctly.
Starting Tom's doom and gloom early, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
no, see, like I said,
leading
I'm a
right
terrible
into that
person.
one. Well, you are, Thomas, but I
Yeah.
thought we had already established that. No, we all love you, Thomas.
I would just ask the CIA directly, but they don't talk to me anymore.
It's those tinfoil hats, I think.
I've been accused.
To be fair,
Alright,
they've never
so-
talked to you. They've always listened to you.
So Laracon on online. Laracon online. That's it. I'm a couple scotches in. I'm getting there. Who attended?
I
Who
did.
attended? How was it,
I was
Thomas?
there.
It was excellent. It carried just like a conference in person.
Mhm.
And the chat system, they used Slack for it, and Slack sort of couldn't handle that many people all at once. A lot of
What do you
people
mean?
were. Well, it turns out there's a Slack command where it'll generate a theme for the Slack channel. It'll post it in the chat. So everyone was posting themes that were all gray. So the whole window just went gray if you clicked on their button.
Oh, seriously? That's what that was. Okay. I saw. I
Yeah.
mean, I've never used that sidebar theme thing before. Which maybe that's machine learning. I wonder if that's machine learning. I don't know if it is or not. But like basically in Slack, if you post like a string of 6 different hex codes, Slack will look at that and say, "Oh, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to share a theme." So it'll let you click that, and then it will set up your Slack window to use those colors. But I saw the gray ones coming through, and I was like, "Those look dumb. I'm not going to use those." But I didn't realize that when you clicked on them, it would actually literally gray out your entire window.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was
funny.
it was less dumb and more malicious.
Yeah.
But it was a well-run conference. We got our digital swag. The videos got released within less than 24 hours, I think. The
No
videos are out right
problems.
now.
No problems with the streaming because there were a ton of people watching, right?
None that I saw. I mean, I watched it from as much as I could. 3 talks in, I think I got, and then I was on the replay videos. But yeah, it seems to have worked out really well, and I think everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
any of the
thought
rest of
we
you
had
guys
bought
join
tickets,
live?
but I can't find that.
What was that, John?
I was
What?
saying I thought we had bought tickets for it, but I can't find any receipt in my email for it.
What was the digital swag? Just curious.
Some like 20% off hosting or like free month hosting. Let me pull it up here. I still got it in my.
Yeah, there's like Linode credits. There's like 50% off a Spark license. There's free 2 months of Algolia search, Docker videos, a free .co domain, 20% off Jason McCurry's Git series. Yeah,
A
there's
free
like,
.co domain.
yeah, yep. So there's probably, I don't know, probably like 8 or 10 different digital
Cool.
swag things. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no stickers
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
No stickers.
yeah, no digital stickers. Bummer.
Those are called badges, I think.
Yeah, that's a good. That's
that
a
what
good. Point.
Facebook
That's a
calls
good
it?
distinction to make there.
I got so angry at Facebook this week, but anyway.
Why is that?
You know what? It's stupid, and this is something. It has to do with all developers too. So, I'm sure we've all had clients. They talk about like, oh, it'd be nice if it had a little tutorial sort of thing. So when you land on the app, it'll simply handle those the introduction to how this works. So if I've had the Messenger app for the past however many months, and you make some updates, I don't give a crap what those updates are. I don't care, Facebook. But you interrupt me from the ability to message a friend and force me to have to tell your thing to stop informing me about the new features. I'm like, come on. That's just
Well,
mean. It's
Facebook
so wrong.
Messenger is malware, anyways.
That's true.
I mean, it is technically malware.
Yeah, it's pure spam.
It updates outside of the normal Google Play Store updating system. It has an open microphone. It spams your notifications. It's malware.
The joys of Thomas. Hey Thomas, you put this.
Yes, sir.
I'm not a full stack developer on Trello board. What's
Yeah.
that about?
Well, I keep getting these calls for contract work, and they say, "Hey, we're looking for a full stack developer," and it just occurred to me the other day, like I don't want to be a full stack developer for somebody. I want to be a back end developer. That's what I want to do. And so often I hear people say full stack as if that were the pinnacle of being a developer. But I'm starting to think about it more and more as the exact opposite.
No,
It's
yeah.
like,
Full stack just translates to we only want to pay for one person to do everything. Not
Yeah.
not
Right.
not
Jack of all
pinnacle.
trades.
yes.
Yeah.
Like full stack is entry level. Like, work the register and mop the floors. Oh, no thanks. No, I mean, there's Google doesn't have a full stack developer who runs their flagship products. They have hundreds of developers that are very, very specialized. And it occurred to me that I shouldn't promote people becoming a full stack developer for anything other than their personal development for their own stuff. But if you're a PHP developer and you're learning how to tune Apache, you're learning the wrong thing right now.
Yeah, I agree. What about Matt? I know a little bit about what you do professionally. Mike and Jacob, do you guys actually do hands-on coding during the day, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just yesterday, for example, I was fixing some code because, and I know you listen to our other podcast, Eric. I don't know about your other folks, but I've been complaining a lot about Google Cloud Platform and storage the last sort of month
Oh,
and
yeah.
a bit. Yesterday, I found out the very, very hard way that in order to filter search results on a storage bucket in Google Storage, they don't use the key of filter, they use the key of prefix. So when I say, give me all of the objects in this storage bucket called that start with this string, and give me the wrong key, and it proceeds to delete every single piece of media in that bucket.
Gosh, are you serious?
You start digging, and it's kind of tricky to to like test that stuff in an automated way, because you've got to, upload, and then, I mean, it can be done, but it means you're like literally waiting for your test to upload a file,
Yeah. It's nearly
delete that
impossible.
file, make sure the other files are still there. Like it can be done. We fixed it now, but yeah, long story short, I'm on the tools a lot. I really don't like sitting in meetings. I don't necessarily like getting involved with clients. I'll get involved with our PMs and, things like that, and make sure that the requirements we're getting are correct and that we understand what clients want. But in terms of like my day to day, I like to just sit there with my headphones on and churn out code as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, my day job is pretty code intensive as well. It used to be literally all I do. Like I would show up, shut my office door, and work, just sit and code all day, which was awesome. It's become a little bit less of that recently, as I've kind of taken on a junior developer, and so that's been just kind of like a ramp up process. So figuring out how to get a junior developer from being a junior developer to like being a contributing member to the team. So that's been taking up, some more of my time with like doing code reviews and a lot of pull requests and stuff like that. And figuring out when to kind of like bring him into what I'm doing so he can like pair with me on stuff. So that's been taking up more of my time, but yeah, pretty much like I still do that very similar thing where I come in and, man, we've got maybe like, trying to think, maybe like between 10 and 20 different applications that I've built and kind of manage. So, and the vast majority of those are all internal, which is great. I get to control the kind of the entire development stack. So that's really nice. And what they're consuming the web application on. So the vast majority of my users, probably 95% of the users that I have, are on the latest version of Chrome. So that's really nice to be able to kind of control that and not have to worry about any of those other janky quirks and all, some of the other browsers and things like that. But yeah, I'm in code all day long, every day. So it's
that was always one of the fun things about developing in enterprise as well, is you really had complete control over end to end what your application, how it was being used, and what tools were using it.
Yep. Yeah. So there is one limitation in that, like I have, we have to run IIS for some of our stuff, which if you're not familiar with that, so it's like Microsoft's version of, Nginx or Apache or whatever. It's their web server. So it's kind of annoying. Thankfully, there's only a couple of our things that are on that. The rest of them are on internal virtual machines that are running Linux and are provisioned with Forge. So that's pretty cool. So we still use Forge and Envoy internally, which is really nice. But Michael, I was going to say, I'm going to take some of the stuff that we would talk about in North South usually. We didn't have a show this week, so it's okay.
You're fine.
Yeah.
There you go.
I had a similar problem with, so Michael's been dealing with Google Cloud Storage, and I've been dealing with S3 stuff.
I think the entire world's been dealing with
it. Yeah. S3's been doing great lately.
Yeah. But even as far as like a very, very similar problem, Michael, to what you had, except for in the opposite direction. So we were using Prefix again to determine, let people download a zip. So it's really cool. So you have like a bucket resource, and then you have a key inside that bucket, and you can have like basically subdirectories in S3. But if you're aware of kind of how it works, there actually is no like directory structure, like as far as like subtrees, everything is a key in S3. So there is no way to check to see if a directory exists in S3. So you can't say, hey, I've created this empty directory, go see if it exists. You can't do that. You have to actually create a file in that directory and then check for the existence of that file. So that was kind of a fun workaround. So now what I have to do is every file that I upload to a directory within S3, I put a .s3 file in there. And so that's how I'm checking for existence across any of these directories. I just say, hey, does .s3 exist in this location? And if it does, then I know it exists. So the problem I had was when you would go to stream a directory of a bucket to a user, if you didn't do the correct prefix or the correct subdirectory, it would literally download the entire bucket So it would say, oh,
Yeah.
that prefix doesn't exist. I'm going to fail quietly on that. And I'm just going to, you know what? I'm sure you just wanted the entire thing. So it just starts streaming a zip of the entire bucket to whoever was requesting it. So that's a big bug. I'm sure you can imagine. So
Yeah.
I figured that one out before we pushed it to production and said, no, you got to check for existence first. So that's why I did that .s3. So that was great. What I did not realize is that when you pass the prefix in the API, it says, I will look for any key keyword starting with this prefix. So I had a subdirectory folder called 4, and then I had one called 43 and 42 and 41 and 44 and 401. And so I had certain users that are like, I feel like I'm getting zips from like other, this isn't mine. This isn't my thing when I go to download it. And it took me a while, and then I figured out it was downloading 4 and 41 and 42 and 43 and 44. So it was taking all of those things that start with 4 and grabbing them all and streaming them into a zip. You want to talk about a nightmare.
Yeah.
You want to talk about panic.
Just tack a forward slash on the end of it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that's exactly what I ended up having to do. So I just needed to have a forward slash on the end, and now it says if there's 4/, grab those, which easy fix once you realize what it is. But I was in panic mode. So I just logged into the server, PHP Artisan down, took the entire site down, was like, no, we got it. I can't screw with this. Like everything's got to go down. So it took me probably 45 minutes to fix it, like in a day of production, middle of the day, just took the entire site down. That was a fun.
Well,
at
least permissions in S3 are easy to work with.
That's been another fun thing lately too. I've been working with that as well. I'll let somebody else talk because I feel like I've been talking for like 10 minutes, but we could talk about that later maybe.
Yeah. So we're dealing with a client today that has concerns around S3 and how do we confirm that files are there? Because when it was down last week, they feel like they lost a bunch of files. So now we're trying to convince the client that, we can't have duplicate files both locally and on S3. That kind of defeats the purpose. So S3 can just be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I thought John was going to go another direction with that a similar issue that we had with the client. We learned today that last week during the S3 outage, and this is what prompted that lost file thing, is they couldn't. We were trying to figure out why they had lost files during the outage. John and I were thinking, well, they're uploading through these mobile devices. It's like, well, the mobile device should have been told that the file didn't upload. And we were doing some research, and unfortunately, it's like one of the previous developers had the bright idea of, even if the file fails to upload, return a 200 code. Just give it the message that the file didn't upload.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh man, that's. So of course the mobile developer he's just looking for a 200 response. He's like, I got 200 response. The file went up. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, S3 is never down. Why would he expect a file upload to fail?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Right.
You're good. Yeah, you're good for another 10 years. I think that's the last time S3 went down. It's 10 years ago. So
I was going to
for you
say.
guys.
Oh, sorry.
Good.
No, I was going to say. I was going to say something about permissions with regards to AWS stuff, with the preface that I will probably be repeating this on my show later, but
we like skipping you guys. It's fine.
Yeah, we had a situation where I had a API key exposed. We actually uploaded, or we pushed code to our GitHub repo, which is private, so no big deal. But I had accidentally left something in an env.example file that had an API key in secret, or API an S3 key in secret. And the problem was, managing credentials in AWS, you have to use these IAM credentials. I don't even remember what IAM stands for. What does that stand for?
Identity and Access Management.
Okay, Identity Access Management. Thank you. Yeah, so basically what it had been was, okay, the way I had handled it was, I have this resource that I need to access. So I have this one bucket that I created that I need to access. And so everywhere I needed to access that, I was using that set of credentials to get to that bucket. The problem was when that API key got exposed, now I had to go find all of the applications that were using it And that's a mess. So I had to like go find the 3 or 4 different applications that were all accessing this bucket and swap out credentials for all of those, which was a pain. It was a huge pain. And so what I ended up doing, I was trying to figure out a sane way to manage this. So what I did was I had only ever used inline policies before. And so what I started doing was I started defining policies for each resource that I needed. So like I create an S3 bucket, I create a policy that allows access to that bucket. And you can have different types of policies. So you have like an admin one that allows full read, write access, all of that. Or you can have one that just has read access, whatever. So you define those policies. Then what I did is I created users for each application that I have. So I have a legal application, I have a forwarding attorney portal, I have a tasks microservice. So those each three of those got their own user, which has its own credentials, and then I could assign those policies to those users. So in the case that an API key got exposed in the future, I would just have to rev the credentials for that particular application. So in the IAM credentials, it's very clear which application needs to change. Instead of having my permissions be based on which resource I'm using, it's now my permissions are based on which app I'm in, and then I attach the policies to those applications, to those users. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so basically,
that's a good idea.
if there's ever an API key exposed, I generate one new set of credentials for the app that was being used, update that in the ENV, and I'm done. That's it. None of the other stuff is affected. So that's the only sane way I've figured out to manage those IAM credentials. And it's actually, once you've had to do it a couple times, you're very thankful for those credentials. If you have to do anything more than just a single resource, it's invaluable that you have access to kind of lock stuff down through there.
Now, did you get notified by GitHub that you had a key in your ENV file there?
No, I got notified by my junior developer. They put in the pull request, and I was like, "Is this supposed to be in here? I don't think this is supposed to be." Yeah, exactly. I don't think this is supposed to be in here, Jake.
You were testing it.
Yeah,
seeing
right.
if he was paying attention.
Yeah, good job.
GitHub does have an algorithm that's supposed to check for keys that shouldn't be posted publicly.
That's cool.
So
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
it takes about a week or so for it to catch it, though.
Just long enough for them to use the key to generate a couple buckets and offload some cost, and then they're like, "Hey, there's something in here you should be aware of."
But do they do that in private repos too, or just public repos?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. I would be curious to know if they do scan private repos the same way they do public. I would guess that they don't, but I don't know.
Yeah, probably not. I bet people are like, if it's private, I can throw it up there. Obviously it's
because I want it everywhere.
Yeah,
I want to be able to release that way.
Yeah.
Because
right.
GitHub never goes down.
GitHub never exposes your repos to other people.
I got a question for you guys. We just had Laracon online. We got Laracon US coming up, which I think most of the people out here are going to. Looking forward to seeing that. So last year at Laracon, I actually got to meet Jake Bennett, and we went to dinner. Or not Jake and I.
It was very romantic.
It was dimly lit. It was very. I
lucky that I was late.
We were a match. Yeah. No, funny. But Jake was having a dinner, and Marcus Moore, the co-organizer of the Laravel meetup here in San Diego, was there with me in Kentucky, and it's like, "Hey, why don't you come to dinner with us?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that'll be cool." And it was probably the coolest dinner I'd gone to in a long time. I didn't realize everybody I was sitting with at the time, but later I went back and kind of looked at the picture. I'm like, "Holy crap! I can't believe everybody that was at that dinner there." It was like one of these things I just totally stumbled into. I was like, that was the coolest thing.
That was a lot of fun. That was really fun.
We've got to do it again in New York. I think that was a fantastic time. But we also have PHP Arc coming up in May. PHP Tech coming up in May. And PHP Tech did something interesting where they did a financial assistance program for their conference, which, again, Laracon Online, Laracon US is not an expensive conference. PHP Tech really isn't that expensive of a conference, but just
$1,000 isn't expensive.
Not compared to like IBM's, which is like $3,000. I mean,
really?
nobody. Yeah, it's. just kind of getting you guys a feel for that. Like, how do you guys feel about this whole scholarship, financial assistance approach to conferences?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the crowd that you're aiming for. I think there's a lot of developers out there who make a reasonable income, but then there's at the same time, there's the cost of the travel, there's the cost of the hotel and food and everything else, and that can easily, skyrocket a budget. But then at the same time, I like the idea of the assistance ones for people who are much younger in their career and they're looking to grow and learn and be involved in the community, because I think that's really important to keep bringing people in like that.
Now, I want to point out that this scholarship program is actually pointed towards what they would call underrepresented groups. So if you identify yourself in the scholarship application as a member of an underrepresented group at technical conferences, you get priority in the scholarship program. So it isn't just about the people who are interested and want to go but don't want to pay for it. It's about a sort of equality in the conference in general. People who are lower income, people who are underrepresented minorities, things like that, who feel like they would provide by being at the conference as well.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how well this works out for them, and I'm curious about. So I think this one's being sponsored by Salesforce. So I assume Salesforce just says, okay, we'll cover 5 conference tickets or something like that. You think for a company like Salesforce, that's probably nothing to them. So it'll be interesting
that way.
Yeah. And I think you guys nailed it. It's like there's so much additional cost with these conferences. Travel being the biggest is just crazy. But I think it's a good effort. Interested to see how well this works out for them. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe throwing just the spanner. Like if you're going to charge, and I know it's a 3-day conference, right? If you're going to charge $1,000 for a conference, I think at that point it may become a little easier to offer the assistance. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be assistance. I think there is certainly people out there that can't afford, can't travel, can't get the time away from family or work or whatever else. I think it's great that they're doing it, but at the same time, you have to weigh it up against what it actually costs to attend that conference. Mm-hmm. There were people, as cheap as what Laracon Online was, there were people that couldn't afford the $10 ticket. So it depends on who you're reaching out to and how far they're going to fly someone from overseas over. Is it just going to be like US based? How much they're going to do that? Obviously I'm coming over from Australia to the US for Laracon in July, and that's a trek in and of itself. But we're going to make a holiday of it because last year I sort of.
Was that
theoretically we should
Trump's going to let you in?
Yeah, we're part of. You never know. Depends on if he sees my Twitter or not. Well, but the theory is, we're part of the visa waiver program in Australia, so theoretically you should be able to get in. But as you say, you've got to factor in all those travel costs and what else you're going to do while you're there and how long. I think it has to happen.
Even coming from Canada, and I mean, like I'm not even like the West Coast or anything like that. Like, but even to fly a small plane from Toronto into New York for 2 people is $1,000.
What?
For there and back.
Holy!
You gotta remember though, we're talking. That's international. That is a national border we're crossing. So
and they charge you more because it's an international flight.
I'm assuming so. I don't know enough about Air Canada,
that's
but
insane.
But that's Canadian flights are not nearly as cheap as they get to be in the States. And a lot of times I've got friends who are like, oh yeah, well, we're going to go out to the West Coast. So they'll drive down into Buffalo and fly across.
Well, it makes sense.
From Buffalo because it's way cheaper.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the last time I went to New York, I drove there, and this conference I'm driving, which is like about 7 hours if you don't drive crazy fast. Because it's just going to be way more relaxing and way more affordable than flying in and flying back.
Man, by the time you go to the airport, get through security, wait, and whatever, it's practically 7 hours. I mean, probably not that long, but still.
No, I agree with you. I think it is about that long. I travel up to Arizona a lot from San Diego. So I go from San Diego to Phoenix. It's about a 6.5, 7 hour drive to where I have to go. And I've done the math, and I've flown that before. And even flying it, by the time you get to the airport, get through security, get on the plane, get taken off, land, all that, you've burnt up 6 hours.
And then you're going to pay how many more hundreds of dollars to take a plane, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I did some looking around at this. If you got that conference ticket for free and you wanted to take a Greyhound from San Diego to Baltimore and you wanted to stay at an Airbnb, you could pull it off for under $250.
Wow.
Why would you go to Baltimore?
That's where the conference is.
Which conference did you talk about?
PHP Tech.
No, it's in Atlanta.
Atlanta.
You'd be very lonely in Baltimore.
I'm lonely everywhere.
Poor Thomas. Oh,
Thomas is
just trying to get everyone else to go
there. So it would just get cheaper then. I'm saying if you're not living in the lap of luxury, if you're not living in a nice hotel for the time, if you're not flying, you can
a Greyhound from
expenses
San
down.
Diego to Atlanta does not sound like a fun trip.
Nah.
No.
Sounds miserable.
But $190.
I really enjoy Airbnb.
I've never done Airbnb.
I can't bring myself to try Airbnb.
Well,
I want to try Airbnb and I just can't do it.
See, I was lucky. So the first time I got to try it was on my second trip to New York. My girlfriend and we were staying there because she was doing co-op with a fashion designer there. And so I was like, oh, can I work remotely for a couple months? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. I'm like, yes. So we literally just hopped around from place to place with Airbnb, because even and as well in New York, they have a restriction on how many days you can actually stay in a place before you're considered a resident because of the rent control and everything. Mm-hmm. So we started staying with a girl who was actually one of the HR people at Facebook. And then she ended up having to kick us out because she found out that her rent was going to get messed up if we kept staying there. So then we went over to Long Island City and stayed there for a couple of weeks, and then back into Manhattan again. And it was just like, it was fun because you're jumping around, but it was actually really affordable. And every host that we had was just wonderfully kind.
And it wasn't weird?
No. Most of them have a nice kind of setup for you. I mean, and in Canada here, I mean, I've gone up to Ottawa and just stayed in Ottawa for like 4 days. And that was amazing because it was what was it, $50 a night, okay, for 4 days.
Yeah.
And the space that I had was a chef's kitchen and little bedroom connected to the side. I guess the person was a retired chef because the oven was like an 8-burner oven, gas fire, like the works, right? And I mean, I'm like, the main reason I wanted to do Airbnb there is so I could control what I was eating. I didn't have to go out for food all the time. It was easier to cook and stuff like that. So for me, that was the best possible deal. It's cheap per night and I get to cook.
My only experience with Airbnb was my in-laws coming into San Diego. They booked a place that was literally like 10 doors down from us. And in the ad, it said that they were 420 friendly. And they had no clue what 420 friendly meant. So my wife's brother got on the phone. I'm like, do you know what that means? And explain it to him. They canceled right away.
All right.
So we've got some what I'll call non-citizens here.
Let me prepare them, Thomas. It's like, you gotta be nice to people. Well, nobody listens to the show, so not necessarily anybody knows about your doom and gloom segment. So everybody better brace themselves a little bit. All right, Thomas, we're at about 50 minutes into this. I'm going to give you. We got about 10 minutes to. I know we got a big story to talk about, but it's your time. This you had to have gotten a boner when you saw this come across the wire.
Oh
Let's
no,
hear
not
it.
at all.
Here's Tom's doom and gloom.
This
Let's hear
isn't
it,
my doom
Thomas.
and gloom though. This is to me this is fine. This isn't doom and gloom. The doom and gloom is the fallout from all of this. But I think by now everyone's heard of Vault 7, the CIA document leak.
Let's assume people
Yes.
listening to the podcast haven't. Why don't you give a brief synopsis of what it was?
Well,
Because
WikiLeaks
Eric
dropped
doesn't know.
WikiLeaks dropped its biggest stash of CIA documents ever this week.
Just the
And
first part.
just the first part, what they're calling the first
1%.
1% of their year zero. The contents of it was just a list of the functionality of all of the CIA's snooping software and vulnerability exploits for televisions, phones, all that kind of Internet of Things stuff. And I watched late night shows where they had people talking about it and said, "This is crazy. The CIA is listening in on my phone and on my Samsung TV." And that's not what this is. This is just a list of the tools that they have. This is not a disclosure that they're using them in any way illegal. Which to use it against a citizen without going to a FISA court is illegal. But Michael,
I'm bracing
you're
myself.
not
This
a
is-
citizen.
This is a new. No, he's not. Well, neither is Matt.
Michael and Matt are not citizens. And the thing that they keep saying whenever they talk about this, when I say they, I mean the CIA, is this isn't for use on Americans. We have to get a warrant for that. This is for use on the rest of the world. Also, we don't have to get a warrant for that, and we don't even bother. We just tap the rest of the world. How do you guys feel about that? That there is no restriction in any way on the CIA on who they can wiretap as long as they're not a U.S. citizen?
Michael goes first.
If they think there's anything interesting going on here, they've got another thing coming to them. And how does this work? Because I spend my time speaking to people in America. Does that mean that they can't tap me because they might inadvertently tap Americans? Or is that just like a
there's a
sneaky way of
provision for
tapping
that.
Americans?
They're allowed to inadvertently tap Americans without a warrant.
They just have to cross out names and anything that identifies the person in America.
They're supposed to. They don't
Supposed
have
to.
to.
Right.
They actually store the records
I'm surprised
in
Thomas
plain.
is still on this hangout.
So the bigger
Well,
question is, hold on. So I have two parts to this story. The bigger question I have, and the one that I think a lot of people lose sight of, is if these are techniques and exploits that our government is aware of, why do U.S. citizens think that it's only our government that has that ability?
Yeah,
It's like
it's
you
not.
think there aren't other governments in this world that are doing the exact same thing to
Russia.
us? Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a story that said 90% of devices have been compromised. I wouldn't be surprised.
I've got a buddy who's got a brand new Google Pixel. He put black electrical tape over the front-facing camera, and I'm like, dude, what are you
Absolutely.
doing? And he's like, dude,
It's not the camera that
government's
matters, it's the
watching me.
microphone.
I'm like, are you serious?
Why did
No,
you buy that phone knowing that the government is watching you with it?
Here's the question for you. What does Facebook's value come from?
Advertising.
Advertising, which
Selling
is
to
generated
people.
by the user data. So China, which also has these tools and techniques and acts as a corporation, could easily just gather everyone's data and decide that China's new business model is to sell American data.
Yeah.
You guys are
It's
So-
entirely plausible. Now,
So I
There's-
go ahead, Thomas.
you said this is my time.
I said I had two things, Thomas. I said two things. I only said one. Now I got the other one I want to talk about.
Fine, give it.
No. So what I was going to say is this is the crutch of my where I start to get frustrated with our government personally in the way they police technology. So everybody freaks out about surveillance and lack of privacy and people are watching. It's like, this is nothing new. This has always happened. This ability has always been there. It doesn't matter what technology we're using or how advanced it is. The government is always going to formulate methods for surveillance. They're not supposed to do surveillance on U.S. citizens. We can always have that debate on when they do it, when it's allowed, when it's not. The part I start to get frustrated with, and I've said so many times before, is the exploits, for example. They had knowledge of these exploits, and they did not protect us as U.S. citizens against these exploits. They chose to keep those exploits in place in the event that they wanted to use it on some foreign citizen, let's say. That's where I start to break down, because that's like saying we would never tolerate our police force saying, well, we won't actively protect you against crime, but if somebody breaks into your house, call us, we'll try to figure out who should investigate it, and maybe we'll go in there and look for it. We wouldn't tolerate that. But we tolerate it with technology. The U.S. government, from trying to protect us perspective, they're very hands-off. And they have tools in place and they have the knowledge in place to protect us, to make the internet safer, to make it more secure. And they choose not to because they're trying to use it to their advantage. They're playing around with these loaded guns and hoping that they don't accidentally shoot a U.S. citizen, and hoping another country doesn't do it.
Okay.
I was going to say, you could argue, too, that they're trying to make the internet more safe by keeping these exploits in place so that they can do more monitoring. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like two sides of the same coin, right? So, like, I have this ability
to say that, but you would be wrong.
Well, I'm just saying,
okay, my turn. Sorry. Because we're going to go so far beyond time, because I can tell you guys are getting into a thing. But anyway, two audiobooks or books that you can read or listen to, like me. Dark Territory, The Secret History of Cyber War. Brilliant. It's by Fred Kaplan. I listened to that last year at one point. That offers a considerable level of insight into kind of the origins of a lot of this stuff and kind of how certain things certain techniques were stumbled onto, and why some of those practices are still maintained. And another one, which I also thought was interesting, is Who Controls the Internet? Illusions of a Borderless World. It's by Jack Goldsmith and Tim Wu. That one talks about a lot of the essentially China's control point of like internet actual browsability and stuff like that, and various other details. The reason I suggest listening to those or reading those is because unfortunately I still feel like a lot of security knowledge is still only snippets, and a lot of people, regardless of what country, we all get into these giant bats and it's like fear mongering because we only know snippets of the bigger perspective. And so when you can actually try and get more of that general perspective of things with more details on the whole, it helps kind of temper a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Good point.
You have to know to protect.
Precisely. And it was interesting too, because in the one by Fred Kaplan, the Dark Territory one, he does talk a lot about how, especially in relation to the way the U.S. was dealing with some of the other countries' attempts at nuclear manufacturing. Let's call it manufacturing for lack of terms. It was interesting to hear about some of the rationalities behind a lot of it and how it was just maintained. It was almost like it was started on some perspectives, but then once that train starts, driving, trying to stop it is a whole other ball game.
Now, okay, so on this note, since we're running low on time, I'm going to zip through the rest of the information here because I know that in the public eye, a lot of this information is getting lost, but there are 3 types of exploits that are involved in this leak.
Are you holding a rock?
Yeah.
I'm holding a Hearthstone, a squishy Hearthstone.
Okay.
It's glowing.
There's exploits that were discovered by CAA and then further extrapolated on. There's exploits that they paid people to insert into their own software. There is evidence that they have reached out to corporations to intentionally compromise their own software. And there are exploits that they went to third parties to have created. So there are a list of companies that created these exploits for the CIA. These companies might not necessarily be American. As Matt is pointing out here in chat, Cisco was a company that was approached to insert,
If I'm not mistaken,
the malicious
don't
code.
totally quote me, but I'm pretty sure.
Pretty much did.
Yeah.
just did it right there.
Yeah.
So Cisco's on the list of bad guys. We all know that. Now, what's interesting is, as Eric was saying, it should be our government's job to patch these holes, to make these corporations aware of things that could be exploited, and prevent U.S. citizens from being the targets of foreign nationals maliciously. But instead, WikiLeaks has stepped up and said, no, this is what we're going to do. We released the information. We did not give the specific technicals on how these vulnerabilities are exploited. And we will work with any company that wants to work with us. So if your company is listed in the list of exploits in this documentation, give us a call. We'll give you the technical details. We'll give you the breakdown of when it was discovered, how it was discovered, and how it's exploited. And we'll do the job that the government should have done for you. I'm really excited about WikiLeaks stepping up and saying, we're not just a document leaking company. We're not just a document leaking site. We're a site for the people. We're a site for making sure people are protected by what it is their government is doing. So I'm excited about that. Personally, I see Eric has moved the topic off of the current discussion.
No,
So-
we were just talking about it.
It's okay. I have 2 other doom and gloom articles on the list.
No, dude, we got people. It's like 1:30 in the morning for some people here, man. That's it, man. That's why everything's got moved back. We'll get back to everything. We'll get back. So I did want to take a couple minutes here at the end and thank everybody for joining us today. This was a treat for me. I am so excited that I finally got the opportunity to get all you guys on the show together. This has been a lot of fun for me. I enjoy it a lot. I especially want to thank Thomas, John, more Thomas than John, but
You're still here. Jeez, you scared me.
For the last year and putting up with me and all that. That's been fun. I did want to put together a quick little clip of like our highlights and play it during the show, but there weren't any, so I didn't do that. So what I did do, if anybody's interested, if you listen to the show, at the beginning of the show, we usually have a little snippet of something that happens during the show. I took all those snippets out and made them one long stream, and I'll attach it to the end of this show. It ends up being like 15 minutes, and it almost sounds like it's its own show. It's really weird, but I'll be sure to attach that to this show at the end of the show. You don't have to worry about listening to it now. But again, thanks for the last year, you guys. I appreciate that. I don't know if I have it in me to keep doing this every week, but I definitely enjoy doing it, and we'll see how we do it moving forward.
I'm finally back and available to do it for the next year. Now you're bailing on me?
No,
I think
you
he's trying to unload it on you.
That's it. You can replace me, man.
There's no replacing you.
He's sick of the doom and gloom.
All right.
Well, I know of these 2 guys who like to pick up podcasts at random and just keep them going. So
They have half the intro done already. So
Yeah, why do you think we had them do the intro? They don't know it yet. They're picking this one up.
That's what you guys should try to do the intros of all the PHP podcasts that you can do. Just to
At
have
least
like
once. Yeah.
yeah.
We're actually
Yeah,
launching a
just
new
do the intro,
service.
guys.
We're actually launching a new service at Laracon this year. It's called Adopt a Podcast, and we'll just take over. Take over a podcast as a service. It's pretty good.
That would be awesome.
We're gonna have
Okay,
to get shirts and
so-
stickers for Laracon.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna get stickers. Did you see these North Meets South guys? They got swag now. They got shirts and everything.
I know.
Yeah,
It looks
They're-
good.
they're
Haven't
putting us
bought
to
it.
shame.
I know. I'm so on the fence.
I was
I don't
super
know if I
annoyed
like
after-
you guys that much. I don't want to
I think
encourage
the-
you guys too much.
You know, the really annoying thing was after I set up the campaign and did all the designs, I launched the shirts, and I got a couple of people say, why is this shirt not available in medium? As it turns out, American Apparel has gone bankrupt. So
Again.
American Apparel, yeah, again. So there's no American Apparel to go around. So I'm going to have to, before we do our next North Meets South, I think, figure out what the next best kind of quality shirt is, and then
Gildan.
try and do that.
Yeah.
Gildan is the country, or it's in the country. It's the company in Montreal that actually bought American Apparel out, if I'm not mistaken.
So is that how you guys did that? You guys did a campaign. It was it one of those things where after a certain amount were purchased, it triggered?
So Teespring now gives you the ability to either do like a 3, a 5, a 7, a 20-day, 30-day campaign, and then it will do a mass ship. But they've now got this thing where you can do like a rolling 3-day campaign. So it means that people can just keep buying it whenever, and then they'll just ship it every 3 days. So whatever's been bought after 3 days, it'll ship it, which means the merchandise gets in people's hands quicker.
Nice.
Oh, okay. So it's not dependent on a certain amount being sold. It just in bulk they'll just do the shipments.
Yeah. So I mean, you can set targets, but if you don't hit that target, they'll still ship whatever was sold. It's just the target is for your own benefit. So, but yeah, we'll have swag this year again. We'll have stickers, and those stickers last year were like, we ordered them. What was it on the Tuesday before Laracon, Jake?
Yeah, I had them shipped to the hotel that we were going to.
Yeah.
Because it was like so last minute. We're like, should we get some stickers? They're like, yeah, let's do it. Okay. Should have had them in yesterday. Okay, so we'll just ship them to the hotel. So we got them when they were waiting at the front desk at the hotel when we got there. So we broke into them and split them up and handed them out like they were cocaine.
Did Michael ever tell you, Jacob, I stalked him on the flight home?
No, he did not tell me that.
I saw him come on the plane. I'm like, hey, that's a guy from North Meets. I really didn't know that much about you guys at the time. And I'm like, that's that guy from North Meets South. And I'm like, I'm gonna tweet him if he replies. I'll introduce myself. And yeah, we were on the plane. And I guess he. Yeah, I'm a dork, Thomas. You know this about me.
So embarrassed.
Because he doesn't like it that
fanboy.
much.
Hey.
He was absolutely starstruck. He just couldn't bring himself to speak.
I once sat down in a coffee shop across from a guy who had done the Toronto news for years. And I was like, I didn't see him directly. He was over to the right of me. And I'm like, I know that voice. So I started tweeting to him. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting beside so-and-so. And then he tweeted back. He's like, oh my God, I'm sitting beside Matt Lantz. And I was like,
Michael didn't tweet me back. He went radio silent, man. He wasn't tipping off
I
that
didn't
I
have any
had him.
cell when I was over there. So I wouldn't have got that until I was in DFW.
yeah.
Deleted his
See,
account,
now-
dyed his
Now
hair.
listen,
Yeah.
Thomas. Thomas is trying to be all tough and everything. We went to Laracon. He comes running up to me. He's like, Eric, there's Jeffrey Way. Go over and say hi. Let's go in. I'm like, the guy is eating lunch. I don't care, man. Let's go meet him. I'm like,
He's eating lunch at he's eating lunch at the Commons at the conference, talking to a bunch of other people. Eric
the
says,
guy
no,
was
no,
eating
leave,
lunch.
yeah. Eric says, no, leave him alone. We'll get him after that. You know what he does? He eats his lunch, grabs his backpack, and exits the building.
Jeffrey Way is a ghost. He is a ghost.
Yeah, he is.
He
That
is,
dude.
yeah.
If you see him at a conference and you want to say hi, you better say hi when you see him. You will never see him
You
again.
know why?
He's in and
Oh.
I don't know. He doesn't really like it.
Here we
He
go.
It's
doesn't really
because
like the
it's because him and Tyler are the same person. It's a
Taylor,
Fight Club
not
situation.
Taylor.
It's him and Taylor.
Yeah.
It's
Have
like
you-
it's a
have you
Fight
ever
Club
saw
situation.
them at the same time?
No,
Mm.
I've seen them at the same conference, but one walks off stage, the other one walks on. It's
I thought they were both robots out of Westworld. And they've
Very
just been
possible.
parading.
Programmed with VJS though.
I like how Taylor is the aggressive, straightforward programmer defending facades at the cost of everything, and Thankfully, the fight with Facades is over now,
Oh, jeez.
as he
Until
mentioned
next
at Laracon Online. But yeah, and then Jeffrey is relaxed and wants to walk you through the IDE and how to use everything correctly. And here's best practices. They don't have to be your practices; they're my practices, though. And man, they're too far on the opposite end of the spectrum to be friends. They have to be the same person.
This is what I put up with week after week. You guys see
Every
I'm
day.
going great. All right, we're going to wrap this up. It's way too long. We've kept people up way too late. I want to extend my appreciation to everybody who showed up. I do appreciate it. Yeah, that's it. You've been listening to episode 52, 1 year of PHP Ugly. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm John Congdon.
Oh my God! Just have to butt in there. There's an order to it. I'm Tom Rideout.
Exactly. There's an order to it.
Go ahead, guy. Let everybody do theirs. Jacob?
I'm Jake Bennett.
I'm Michael Dorinda.
And I'm Matt Lantz.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Oh, you
a
guys
wrap.
are awesome, man.
Well, thanks for having us on, man. That was fun.
No, dude, are you
Yeah.
kidding me? Thanks for being
Thanks so
on.
much.
I
It
appreciate
was a little
it.
mini conference. It was fun.
Hey, Matt, you'll be happy. Matt, you'll be happy. I opened a pull request on the PHP Ugly podcast.
I can't merge it because then you break every link to show notes I had for the last year.
Well, you got to go fix those links.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
worry. All three people have done everything they're going to do with those show notes.
Okay, so everybody knows. I don't know if anybody's used Zencaster.
Still
but
live,
don't,
eh?
don't close your.
Oh yeah, we're still
audio
on.
and stuff.
Eric.
I got it.